extensive background. Oh, thank you. He has an extensive background in PR and VIP client relations at high fashion brands like Burberry and Dolce and Gabbana. So without further ado, let's get started. Why don't you start talking about your background and how you got your start in luxury fashion?
So I actually was a professional ballet dancer, and I started training when I was 7, and I moved to New York when I was 15. It's a very rigorous art form. You go 6-7 days a week starting at a very young age, and then you're expected to have a job basically by 18. So our contracts were usually ending around June. And after a couple seasons dancing professionally, my mom suggested one summer that I see what the real world was like. And I started working at J. Crew, I think it was 20 years ago, just as a summer kind of experience. And it was wonderful because it kind of took the art background that I had with dance and showed me another way to express myself and another outlet. And it was something that would have never been on my radar. And so it was a really nice kind of summer part-time way to enter into what at that time was a really up and coming fashion brand. And when I retired from ballet, I moved back to New York, and I actually started full-time with the company. In New York, there was a department, and it was a personal shopping department. And there was 3 of us. And Jenna Lyons, I'm sure many of you know from J. Crew, was here, and she was so inspiring. And it was fun to work for any brand in New York, because usually the US headquarters are based in Manhattan. So to be able to be a part of that corporate life and see how the catalogs are put together and see how this kind of price range of fashion was inspiring a generation was very special, because 20 years ago, no one in my age bracket could have afforded a $3,000 handbag. And I think J. Crew was so amazing because it was able to give this fantasy to people at a price range that was very accessible. And I thought the company was incredible. So anyway, I was with J. Crew for 10 years. And we can talk about this more extensively later, but I think that the way that people are shopping, the landscape of fashion has changed. And I think that that price range was very, very attractive. And I think that it just had become too large. And so the company is not doing well now, as we all know. And after that 10-year time frame, it really had diluted. So I actually left the brand after 10 years with J. Crew, and I took 6 months off. And a big reason why I had never been attracted to luxury fashion is because I thought it was inaccessible. I thought the price range was something that was not where I wanted to invest my money. I couldn't imagine spending an entire month's rent on a bag or a coat. And it seemed like the industry was very snobby. And when I would go into a space, I felt very judged. And it wasn't a place that I wanted to be in. And I started doing a lot more research. And I started falling in love with the pieces and thinking of them more of as art than as just some inaccessible piece of fabric. And I fell in love with Burberry. The history of that company was so romantic, and I loved that they were born from a trench coat, and that it had been around for 120 years, and that it was so relevant then, and it's so relevant now. And so I joined Burberry, and my role there was called Burberry Private Client. And my role there was to think outside the box and create romantic events that would engage clients. And so we had a really expansive budget there, which was great. And so it really was so much less about selling clothes to clients and more so creating an experience. So we would throw birthday parties for people. Where I met you, we would host large groups and show them the collection and basically make it a less intimidating experience. So just creating a human side of the collection. And I think that that really is what anyone touching a fashion house's job is to do, is to create an emotional connection to a brand. And that's all you need to make people want something, is to feel emotionally connected. And so that really was the primary point of my job there. And then I also was heavily involved in celebrity and television shows. So it was kind of a studio service experience where television shows would use my department, and then very VIP celebrities would use us. And it was all a very paying experience. So this was a kind of a top tier celebrity appointment-based business. So I was with Burberry for 3 years, and I had a friend that was in a PR position at Dolce, and this position had been filled for around 20 years because there's only one of them in New York and one of them in LA. And when positions open like this, you need to run. So I think the minute I heard it was available, I think on a lunch break, I literally ran over to Dolce and Gabbana and threw my resume in someone's face and got an interview. And it all kind of just unfolded from there. So I've been with Dolce and Gabbana now a year and a half, including COVID. And my role has really expanded in this company. So I have three responsibilities. I am in charge of hosting editorial PR. So that's ensuring that our pieces get into magazines, primarily Condé Nast and Hearst. The other component of my business is entertainment PR. So that's ensuring that celebrities are gifted and have a presence with our brand. And then the third component of it is studio services. So that is television shows and movies that shop with us. And between the three of those, it's a lot. I'm responsible for New York, Los Angeles, and Milan. Those are kind of our biggest markets. And between all those markets, sometimes it can get really, really overwhelming. But it's also a dream too, I think, especially in these very challenging times. I think anyone would rather be more busy than not. And so that's kind of where my three worlds live now. So I guess we could further that with our question list if you want.
Yeah. So why don't you describe like your daily tasks? What does like a day in your current job look like? And does it change, or is it like a set few tasks a day?
I think that what's exciting but also stressful is everything happens in real time. So the magazine portion of it, editors will basically send emails, let's say Vogue, and they're looking for a 1920s story. And basically they give me the model's dimensions or the talent's dimensions. And then my job is to basically create a story for them. So usually I have sometimes a week notice, sometimes I have 25 minutes notice. And I'll go through the collection and I'll find things that I think is appropriate for whatever they're shooting. And then pre-COVID, I would exclusively have appointments with the editors, and they would come in and we would work together, and we would pull for the issue. And now a lot of what I'm doing is through images. So before maybe they would come in person, but now I'm getting these directives and everything is being photographed, and then it's going to the editors and they're deciding. So from an editorial perspective, that's what I do for them. And I could do 7 to 8 magazines in a day. And I think we all know that print is in a different direction now. You don't go to the store and buy a magazine like you would have 10, 15 years ago. But our online and digital is extremely strong. And so editorial will never go away. It's just a different way that you look at it. Before, maybe you would open a magazine and you would see all the stories there, but now we see them on Instagram. And so those same stories are being shot there. So, I think that there's this fear that the industry is going away, and I think it's not going away, it's just being redefined. And I actually really like that it's so instantaneous, because it's kind of this instant gratification where you'll pull it down for a magazine, a celebrity will shoot it, and the next week you'll see it in your face. So that's kind of my editorial experience with the company. And I specifically love Dolce and Gabbana because we're so theatrical and the colors are so bold, and it photographs so well. I think Burberry was a very inspiring company, but it's a more muted color palette. And I think Dolce and Gabbana is just, there's just so much there to please the eye. and the collections are always evolving, and it's just a fantasy. And you want to open a magazine and see it, and it's sometimes I'll like be flipping through Instagram and I'll see something and I'll like be blown away. I'm like, oh my god, that's me. Like, we did that, and I love that you're not even connected to something because you're part of the company, but you genuinely feel something from it. So that's very, very exciting. And then the celebrity component, that's how you stay relevant, and that's how you stay emotionally connected. And when you connect with someone and you see them wearing something, it means something. And that's a huge part of an advertising budget. I think, 10 years ago, you would spend $250,000 on a size 2 blonde model, and she'd be in whatever you were trying to sell. And I think that connection has really been diluted. I think the reason that you connect with someone now is because of someone you respect, someone that maybe has the same political views as you, or is fighting for something that you're fighting for, or has something that you connect with. And so I think that's when you have a celebrity that's wearing something, you connect with them because they're a human versus just a blank model. And so it's very important that we have our pieces on people that we respect. And so that's kind of the celebrity aspect of it, is ensuring that people are wearing our clothes. And so what I love about our house specifically is that family is a huge component of Dolce & Gabbana's values. And it's very important for us to feel like we're connected. And so we gift a lot. So that's another thing that happens, is a publicist will reach out and they'll say, so-and-so celebrity's doing this, or they're going on this talk show, or they're just walking down the street, or they're being filmed a lot, and we want them to have something. So for instance, this fall, we were gifting a lot of outerwear. So every celebrity you can possibly think of, we were kind of just Googling their dimensions if I didn't know it, and picking out things that I thought they would want. And then I'll gift wrap to make it beautiful, and we'll courier it to their homes and hope that they wear it, or Instagram it, or whatnot. So we don't have control necessarily of when you're going to wear something, but if you have something in your closet, you're more likely to have it on, and it almost acts as advertising, but very organic advertising for us. And then the last component really is with studio services of my day is New York and Los Angeles is where most things are filmed. And so it's interesting when I watch a television show, the acting can be horrible, but if you're visually stimulated, then you'll watch another episode. And I never realized the importance of clothing because, it seems ridiculous to spend $3,000 on one scene for one actor. But when you flip through the 100 trillion things on Netflix, what visually brings you in is the costumes. And so that's why these budgets are so huge. And so when I'm working on television shows and movies, they want Dolce and Gabbana. They want luxury fashion houses because you can tell the difference. Maybe a white shirt is a white shirt, but it looks different from a $900 white shirt to a $25 shirt from the Gap. And so that's a huge component of it, is making sure that these television shows have access and availability to the pieces. And so some days I can have 20 appointments in one day between our entertainment, our editorial, and studio services. And there'll be other days where not one person emails, so it's very inconsistent and it's very difficult to plan out your day. But I think that the biggest thing for me is just staying organized, because I can have a couple $1 million worth of product out at any point being loaned. And I think you just have to be able to know who has what, because from an editorial entertainment standpoint, usually you expect that product back. It's loaned. So for a magazine, maybe you'll gift them 50 pieces for a shoot, but those pieces need to come back to you. And so you need to make sure that you are very organized, because you can't just lose $2-3 million worth of clothing, because that's obviously bad for the company. So I think the biggest component of my day is just organization, because of how much is in and out with different people. So that's kind of a rundown of an average day. It obviously changes every day, but those are the three kind of big pillars of it.
Yeah, so going off of that, obviously you mentioned organization skills are a must. What other skills do you think are kind of like a standard, a requirement for anybody in your position?
I think that there's a billion things that are helpful, but it seems so just common sense, but just kindness. The industry is so small, and I think that's something that there is no education necessary for kindness. There's no training for that. Just be kind. I think you never know what intern is going to be your boss, and you never know what intern could be horrible to a group of people and get someone else fired. I mean, it's so small, our industry. And so I think just being humble and being kind. I think I notice that so much when I see someone new coming in from a magazine and they have attitude or they're not going through the right protocol. That gets around. And in my position specifically, if my reputation started going off as being someone who is difficult or an attitude, that travels fast between editors and no one wants to work with you anymore, So the clothing could be horrific one season. There could be a global pandemic. So many horrible things can happen, but just a base level of kindness is what it is. And relationships is really what this business is. It's just being kind and being able to communicate. And then from a more practical standpoint, I think decisiveness, I think that what I think my job is a compass. Stylists are coming into 7 or 8 fashion houses in a day, and my job is to basically is being like this, like being very decisive and having a point of view. Don't be scared of a point of view, just own it. I think that I realized that a lot of people don't really know what they want, and you have to tell them what they want. That goes with celebrity, that goes with magazine, and never undermine just your taste level. And so I think just not giving people a million options and really zoning it in. When I'm doing an editorial, for instance, I don't show them 300 gowns. Like I'm like, these are the 4 gowns you should shoot. This is what you specified. I think when you give people too many options, you're wasting so much of your time, and it can take 6 hours to decide on one person. So to really fit in everything I need to do in a day, it's almost being a little harsh and being like, this is what you're shooting. This is what I like. This is what's going to do well, and having a strong point of view. So that's been very, very helpful for me. And I think looking back on people that have not been successful in my role, it's people that are like, I don't know, like, I like this. What do you think? It's too much back and forth. And then you end up spending so much time in an appointment, which you just don't have time for. So to accomplish everything you do in a day, just own your decisions.
So you touched on it earlier, I think like in the first question that you were answering, how when you first were trying to get in the fashion industry, you found it to be kind of, had a snobbiness to it, especially in luxury fashion. Do you think that in the past 20 years, the luxury fashion industry has moved away from that and is kind of being more accessible to more groups of people? Or do you think that it's kind of still has that same mentality as before?
What I have found is interesting is I'm 2 generations older than most of you. When I was 23, 24, I didn't have access to YouTube. And so the only way to look at fashion shows were to buy a magazine, or I can remember Netflix used to send the discs to your home. So I would order these fashion shows on DVDs, and that's how I would see what was on the runway. This generation can go on instantaneously and watch the shows live. And so I think that this generation's accessibility to luxury fashion is so much different, and it's so much better because it's immediate. And so you can instantly see something and feel something and feel emotion and feel inspired. And that's really, really exciting. I also think people's shopping patterns are changed. When I was 20, no one had anything in this industry. No one would go into a store, and you would never see anyone with a Dior bag when I was 23. We were buying J. Crew when we were buying Gap. And I think people's shopping patterns have changed, which is how I think the mid-level retail is dying, because I'm sure every single one of you have a luxury handbag or some, at least one piece. I never had that when I was that age. And I think people now are buying quality over quantity. And I think you'll save up 3 or 4 months to buy a bag versus every week going to J. Crew or going to Banana Republic. And I think that people's shopping patterns are changed. And so because of that, the industry has to evolve too. You know, our client base is getting younger and younger and younger. And so the way that you advertise, the way that you sell, the way that you present something has to be accessible to a new generation. Because if you don't, it's gonna die. For instance, Estada. Estada was a brand I remember being like so fierce. I was like obsessed with it when I was in my early 20s, and they're all closed because all their customers, quite frankly, died and they couldn't access a new client base. And if you can't move with the needle with your generation, you're never going to survive. And so, yes, I still feel there's a huge problem. I work in the luxury world, and yes, it would not be the thing I would love to do most is walk down Fifth Avenue or Madison Avenue and go into these stores because it's intimidating. And it's, you know, if you don't have the cash to throw down on something that day, it can feel like you're wasting someone's time or you don't want to go in it. And there's definitely a disconnect with many houses. I totally feel that. And I work in that world. But I do think it's changing. And I do think that through social media, it's become more accessible. What I also love too is that how fashion is represented is different. You know, you're seeing fashion on different ethnicities, different body types, in a way that it was never presented before. And I think that also brings down a wall. With Dolce, you know, we go up to a size 18. I think we're one of the only companies that does that. And when you expand a size range alone, it opens it up to a whole new world. And I think that's something huge in the fashion industry. When you go up to a size 8, I mean, that's 90% of the United States right there. You just isolated. So I think sizing is huge. You know, I think accessibility is huge. And also having some sensitivity for price range too. You need to be able to have opening price ranges, which makes you want to dream. You know, I don't think anyone just goes out and spends $5,000 in a Birkin. You know, you made that first luxury purchase. Maybe it was a pair of shoes for $600. Maybe it was that first thing that like made you want to continue with a company. But I think prices are becoming more accessible. So yes and no to your question. I think that we have a long ways to go, but I do think that people that are successful are changing. And
so how have you seen this like change affect your PR strategies and like who is chosen to represent the brands? Are they like iconic fashion icons, or are they more people who are like representing this younger audience?
you know, I don't think that we'll ever stray away from the celebrity aspect of it. But I think that's kind of where our entertainment PR comes into play. You know, we want celebrities to wear our pieces. We obviously want to believe in the message the celebrity has. You know, I think that there are certainly people that maybe we don't agree with certain opinions they may have, and it has to align with our values. And I think that might dictate where we veer our celebrity fashion PR into. But from a campaign standpoint, you know, I think we are trying to put our product on real people. I don't know if you've seen our recent Instagram pieces for Dolce, but you know, they're very androgynous models. And this whole last collection was a 90s collection, and it's very gender fluid. And I mean, it's something I've never seen before from this house. And it's a message we believe in. It's showing a lot of same-sex couples. It's showing a lot of people who identify as trans. It's different body types. You know, it's very, very important to put everyone's representative in this world. And if you don't, you're going to fail. And so it's really exciting to be a part of a house that you go on social media and you see everyone represented in it. And so I think from a campaign standpoint, that's something 20 years ago, you would have only seen Naomi Campbell living her life with a $30,000 down, and that's your representation. So certainly we're never going to veer away from wanting celebrities in our pieces. I mean, that's indisputably how you stay relevant. But I think from an actual campaign standpoint versus a entertainment PR standpoint, that's kind of where those two different.
Does Dolce and Gabbana like using any micro influencers at all, or like just lesser known like influential people, or is it mainly celebrities?
I think that at the end of the day, it's a business. You is much of a fantasy as it is, and so you certainly have to put your resources towards people that are going to have a wide audience. We would certainly entertain discounts for people that maybe didn't have as wide of an audience, but if we're going to give something to you, it's very important that there be some sort of revenue back, and so it's not so much to do with who you are, but it's kind of how much you influence, and that's unfortunately it's important that is always kind of an underlying aspect of it. We need people to wear our pieces that then inspire people to then bring money back into a company, because you have to think of the business aspect of it too, because you can't just have a non-revenue creating company. I mean, that's how we have to stay alive. So it's two-pronged, certainly it's a wide pool. It's not just Jennifer Aniston. I think we have a wide range of influencers, but there's got to be some sort of come back to the company from that for sure.
So, kind of changing the subject here, what are some of your biggest successes in your career?
I think when it's not so much of a success, but when I can make someone feel beautiful, that's pretty incredible, because I sometimes underestimate kind of the power of fabric and what that could do for someone. And that's very, very special. And I think when I have those moments where it just clicks with someone, it's very special. And so I don't think there's some sort of pinnacle moment where like, this is a success moment, but I think when I feel like something works, or when I feel like I've nailed it, someone is looking for some story for some magazine and they comment like, yes, that's exactly what I was looking for. Or I see a celebrity wearing our pieces and they just look gorgeous. Or even just someone comes in and they want to buy something and you can see their whole body change when they put something on. That's very, very special to me. And that's been from Burberry to J. Crew. It doesn't matter the price point, but it changes the way you look at yourself when you are wearing something that truly matters. And my confidence level goes up. I mean, this last year with the pandemic, it's just been, I'm sure all of us have felt this just depression loom over you. And especially people that are interested in fashion and beauty, there's days where you like don't wash your hair and your face and you're in like a sweatpant for the last 9 months and you just like, what is the point, And there were days when I was just be going to the grocery store for my husband and and I would dress up just to make myself feel better, like no one even was looking. There was no one in New York, and it would make me feel better. And there's this kind of just chemical thing that changes in you when you feel good about yourself. And, I'm not solving any sort of medical crisis here. I'm just fabric, but it really does change how you feel. And so after COVID, that really was something that kind of made me reevaluate what's important to me. And is if I can make you feel better about yourself, make you feel beautiful, and make you feel more confident, those are the big wins for me. And that can happen across all mediums, whether that be editorial, entertainment, celebrity, whatever that might be. If I feel like I've nailed it, those have been kind of the biggest wins in my career, I think.
That was such a lovely answer, because I feel like that's exactly why I love fashion too. It's like it just pulls you out of any negativity and like it's kind of the joy in life, right? But what were some of like your most significant setbacks maybe, and how did you get yourself out of that setback?
Um, I don't think that anyone goes in this world and knows what they really want to do. And if you think you know what you want to do, it's never what you think it is. I never was like, I want to do PR and work with magazines. And like, that's never was, everything kind of just like was a mistake, you know? I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I was actually fired from J. Crew. I was there for 10 years. And the company wasn't doing well. And our department was significantly overpaid. And it was gutting, you know? You're with a company for 10 years and you think that, you know, you've given it so much and you think you've touched so many people's lives and you think you've just changed the way that women look at themselves and you've gotten to be on this ride with a company that trusts the Obamas with the generation and like, how exciting, you know, you just think you're the top of the world. And then it's like you're in a relationship with someone for 10 years and someone breaks up with you. That's what it feels like, you know, 10 years with a company, you know? And so you doubt yourself. You think, well, if J. Crew doesn't want me, like why would it, you know, where else do you go? Like, what am I doing with my life? Like, it really makes you doubt yourself. And so I think it took me around 6 months to get my self-esteem back. And when I started at Burberry, you know, I was just on their sales team. You know, it was a very difficult time for the economy and no one was buying anything. And it was in a very transitional point. And, you know, it's a lot of self-doubt, you know, and so I think it's just putting yourself in situations where there's so many people touching a brand where you can see all the different things that you could possibly do. And I think that's what happened with Burberry. I came in there very gutted, very doubtful, and I was kind. I listened. I was respectful. I was humble. You know, I was queen bee at J. Crew, and I came in there and I was at the bottom again. And, you know, it was just kind of rebuilding yourself back up. And I was there for 6 months. And then everyone in this private client department left or was fired. And those people had been there for 15 years. And it just so happened that I had like been there just eager. And I jumped in that position because I'd been kind and humble and played the game, you know? And so I was just in the right place. And I would have never gone from J. Crew and thought these are the things I want to do. But I went into a position and they became available and it kind of just happened. So, you know, I think so much of this world is just getting in the door and being patient and observing. And I think that's how my career has kind of developed, is because of that. I would have never gone to Dolce if I hadn't gone to Burberry and these people hadn't left and I hadn't started working on VIP situations and television shows, and, you know, everything kind of happened that way. But never let someone saying no to you make you feel like you're not valid. I think you just have to think of your career like relationships, and not everything's going to work out, and it's not always you, and maybe it is you. Maybe, you know, I had to step back from J. Crew. I'm like, what did I do wrong? You know, and if it is you, then work on that. And if it's just the industry, blind it away. You know, so it's interesting looking back and maybe 6 years ago being fired from a company like that, and now, you know, feeling like I'm the director of public relations for Dolce and Gabbana in North America. Like, I would have never thought that someone fired from a sales position there would do this, you know, but it's just kindness. That's my biggest thing, is just kindness, because that's how I got where I am. There's some skill set involved in it, but it's just being in a good mood every day and leaving all your problems behind. And that's what people want to work with. You know, you can mold everything else, but if you're easy to work with and you want to be around that person, I mean, you can really know nothing. And so I think that's always been my biggest skill set, is just being likable, and the skills come. So I think that's been my biggest weapon through all that hard time.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
What I like most about you, Eric, is that you were so open to my students and welcoming, and it was so incredible because Cheryl was not available and you just stepped right in and were so kind and so nice to them. I just have taken that with me forever. And also the fact, like you're saying, about being humble and kind, and you were kind to every one of my students. And I just was so impressed with that. And then another thing you told them, one of the times that we visited, was how you felt when you first put on your Burberry trench. So maybe you can tell them again about that.
Yeah, I think that I bought a trench with some tax return one year, right after I left J. Crew. And I remember that feeling of my personal life had just basically gone into smokes, and I was let go of J. Crew, and I just felt worthless. And it's so weird to think a piece of fabric could do something, but I got a Burberry trench coat, and when I put it on, I felt powerful, and I felt beautiful, and I felt like I just had money attached to me. And it just made me feel good about myself. And to this day, I've been in luxury fashion for a long time, and perks of it is you get a bunch of swag. So I've got a bunch of stuff in that closet now from sample sales. And to this day, it's probably one of my favorite pieces still, is that my first Burberry trench coat. It's and it means something special because it really was something that gave me therapy. And that sounds so stupid, but I would put it on and I would just feel better. If I was having a bad day, I would put my Burberry trench coat on, and it made me feel like I had value. And I would never say fabric is has to do that, but it did for me. And I think that is what connected me to Burberry specifically. And that's what made me want to be a part of this world, because it does transform you. And it's not just like overpriced clothing at a store, which I know is the big stigma. It really is art. We're artists. That's what we are. And that's what luxury fashion is. The stuff is handmade. It's exquisite. And so to be able to wear that on your body is very special. And so anyway, that one coat was kind of that entry into this world and became that drug that made me want to keep doing it. So.
Well, I'd love to open it up to the rest of you guys if you have any questions for Eric.
Hi, Eric. Thank you again for coming and speaking with us today.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much. I was wondering, when you're working with these brands like J. Crew, Burberry, and Dolce, is there a lot of collaboration between sectors of the brands, like with merchandising or marketing or design, like more creative departments like that? Or is the PR department more of like kind of like a one-man band, you could say?
I think the end goal of every department is to emotionally connect a client with the product. I mean, that in a sentence, that's what every single human, no matter who you are, working for a brand is trying to do. And so specifically with the Dolce, our visuals team brings these pieces to life, and it creates theater. And certainly the pieces that they deem the most accessible to put in a window or adorn a floor with are certainly going to be the most accessible pieces that we're going to try to push as well. With an editorial standpoint, we only want new pieces to be shot. There's a rule that when something is in the store for 4 or 5 months, they don't really want me to show it because it is deemed stale, which is crazy. But the whole point is to always be pushing the new ideas of the designers forward. And so from a visual standpoint, that's something that we always want to do, is put the newest, most beautiful, most lovely, most visually stunning pieces out there. And so I think that's kind of always the joke, is that I'm always kind of fighting with them because we don't make that many pieces. When a gown is $15,000, it can take hours and hours and hours to put it together. So we may make two. The United States might get 140 and 138. And if they're both on a mannequin in a window, which Mr. Dolce has then deemed appropriate for the window, and Anna Wintour wants this dress for the cover of Vogue, it's always kind of this like fight in a friendly way of where this dress is going to go for how long. And so I'm always trying to pry this stuff out of windows and then give it to an editor. So I think we're all kind of on the same page, but because the product is so limited, it is a challenge to get one dress shot and in a window and in a magazine and on Anne Hathaway for a show the next day, all at the same time. So with beauty and everything comes just less accessibility. And I think that also makes it kind of exciting because you're like, if you have this dress, you know, you're ready to fight for it, you know? So everything has a synergy. But yeah, to your question, I think everyone is trying to get the newest pieces, and that's what everyone's competition is. So we're all kind of aligned with that.
Very interesting. Thank you so much.
Say that like a big part of PR is like putting out fires in terms of, you know, press and stuff like that. So do you have any examples of when you had to do that or use quick problem solving skills to fix an issue? Yeah.
Well, from an editorial standpoint, I think that, you know, shoots are happening while people are emailing. So a lot of my most stressful situations are when a shoot is physically happening, the model, the celebrities actually on set, and nothing fits them. And so sometimes they'll be like, you know, we're paying this person X amount of dollars per hour. Our entire crew's here. Nothing is the model size. An example I'll give you was Lizzo. There was a publication she was shooting for, and she was on set, and they had nothing. And so I'm obsessed with our company just because we represent a wide range of sizes, and women look beautiful in our pieces of all sizes. And so we had 45 minutes to get these gowns to the shoot, and I got in a Uber and delivered them by hand. And you know, that happens a lot. I think in New York, where the shoots are happening, things are very real. This week was kind of an exciting moment for me with the company because our fashion show is Monday. And so our job from an entertainment standpoint is making sure that celebrities are wearing our pieces for the show. And so what I've been working on for 3 days straight is ensuring that this long Bible of people we want to attend our show is all wearing something. And I think that has been something to sift through, is making sure that everyone is happy, everyone likes what they're wearing, and that it gets them on time. And it's sensitive, you know, people don't understand that they're not the only person in the world. And I will just give a wide generalization of celebrity, that the world revolves around them. And you need to make everyone feel like the world revolves around them while making sure that 50 people are all being accommodated for. And so I think those are the big kind of psychological things that you have to just deal with. You need to basically come in knowing that your problems don't matter that day. You know, go home at night, talk to your partner, leave it there, but you have to just come in so blank because everyone's going to be angry. And I think the way I get calmed down is I realize it's just fabric. Like, it really is. Like, yes, it's beautiful. Yes, it's transformative, but I'm not working in an ER. I'm not at an emergency room. I mean, COVID has really been huge, right? I've realized what real problems are. I mean, I am literally bringing a gown to you to be photographed and put on Instagram. Like, it is what it is. Like, you know, someone screaming at you, like, you have to put it in perspective. And I think that's how I've calmed myself down. And, you know, sometimes you do get hurt when someone screams at you, but just realizing what you're really doing, you know, like, the world is not going to end if someone doesn't get something, you know? And so I think having that perspective allows me to kind of step back and be like, kind of get what I need to get done. But when you get flustered and they're flustered, then nothing happens. So I think just a sense of kind of calm that I have to reset each day is how I go into it. But yeah, I mean, the ego is real. Like, it's not fabricated. People have it. Like, it's what it means to be a celebrity. So it's what you sign up for in this role, for sure.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay, well, if no one else has any other questions, thank you so much. I learned so much today, and I hope the rest of you did too. It's been a pleasure having you, but we can go ahead and just finish the meeting.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. It was nice meeting you all.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you so much.
Bye.